Now we've even got, what's his name, Keir Starmer, sir. That bastard excused Jimmy Savile. He's the one who signed off and said there wasn't enough evidence. That bastard is going to be the prime minister. So a guy who literally, who signed off and said not enough evidence of the man what we now know, Sir Jimmy Savile, who raped 500 while being greeted by the Queen and, BBC covering. Keir Starmer, is this acceptable? I'll tell you what, I'd rather die in the fight than bow to that crap.
If you're not completely oblivious, you've likely heard about the escalating divide among Labour MPs. This isn't mere gossip, it's a genuine upheaval fueled by accusations that Keir Starmer is influenced by elites and holds controversial views on crucial issues, including alleged support for criminal gangs in the country. In this program, we aim to uncover the full truth about the current situation in the UK and explain why the Labour Party appears to be teetering on the brink of disaster. While the party's decline may seem gradual, it's just the beginning of a looming catastrophe. Let's explore what truly terrifies the Labour Party. The situation is increasingly dire. Keir Starmer seems to have rallied his supporters for a fight, while Labour members are frantically trying to connect with Elon Musk amid rising speculation that Starmer's influence is waning. However, chaos reigns within the party.
Keir Starmer has lost a Treasury Minister this afternoon. Pressure had been building, as you say, over links between Tulip Siddiq, who in fact in the Treasury was the anti-corruption Minister, and her aunt, Sheikh Hasina, who until last year was Prime Minister of Bangladesh. She was ousted in something of a coup. Since she left office, there's been an anti-corruption investigation into Sheikh Hasina that's still ongoing. Some of the properties that Tulip Siddiq lived in appear to have had links to Sheikh Hasina's family and to members of Sheikh Hasina's political party in Bangladesh. The new Bangladeshi Prime Minister suggesting some of those properties should be the subject of corruption investigations as part of that wider probe into the former Prime Minister. Where does this leave us? Well, over the last few days, since last week, the independent investigator into ministerial interests, an individual called Lori Magnus, has been looking into Tulip Siddiq's affairs on behalf of the Prime Minister, glancing at Tulip Siddiq's letter, what appears to have...
On the 14th of January 2025, Tulip Siddiq resigned as Finance Minister, sending shockwaves through society. Amid the controversy surrounding her family's alleged connections to corruption, Siddiq, who also held the position of the UK's anti-corruption minister, faced immense pressure. Public scrutiny intensified regarding her family in Bangladesh, particularly her aunt, a former prime minister, which only heightened the tension. Although an independent review found no breaches of ministerial codes, Siddiq concluded that remaining in her role would divert the government's focus from more pressing matters. However, her resignation has sparked a furious backlash among citizens who feel that no one is being held accountable for corruption. Many believe that Siddiq's departure is merely a strategic move to evade further investigation and obscure the truth. The public is outraged that, despite serious allegations, no formal charges have been filed against Siddiq and her family. People are filled with anger and frustration, demanding justice. While some of Siddiq's supporters argue that her resignation was a necessary step, critics view it as an attempt to escape the repercussions of her closer ties to a corrupt network.
Happened is that Lori Magnus has said that Tulip Siddiq did not breach any part of the ministerial code. However, the Treasury Minister has herself decided to resign, fearing that the allegations of links to that former Prime Minister, who is now under investigation, she says will be something of a distraction. Just to pick out some key bits of that letter, as you know, having conducted an in-depth review into the matter at my request, Lori Magnus has confirmed, "I have not breached the ministerial code. There's no evidence to suggest I acted improperly in relation to the properties I have owned or lived in, nor to suggest that any of my assets derive from anything other than legitimate means." She said her family connections are a matter of public record, but in that penultimate paragraph, she says, "It's clear that continuing in my role as Economic Secretary to the Treasury is likely to be a distraction for the government. My loyalty will always be to this Labour government and the programme of national renewal. I've therefore decided to resign from my ministerial position."
On the 12th of January 2025, the Labour Party found itself on the brink of an internal division regarding the issue of gangsters and the call for a national investigation. This turmoil was sparked by a revolt led by MP Dan Carden, who backed Andy Burnham's demands for a public inquiry into the grooming gang scandal. This action signaled potential fractures in the Labour Party's united stance on the matter. The situation intensified when Nigel Farage accused the government of attempting to conceal the true extent of grooming gangs. This accusation gained traction after the Minister of Health suggested that public discussions could unjustly tarnish certain communities. As a result, there was a significant public outcry, with many calling for a thorough investigation.
But first of all, could I ask you about Elon Musk and where do you stand as regards him sticking his nose into British politics?
Well, look, it's entirely up to people, wherever they are, to pontificate on whatever they want to, but we're really concerned here about getting on with governing in this country, which is why we want to get on and talk about the NHS today and waiting lists, because that's
We're going to do that. We're going to do that. But meanwhile, Musk sets the agenda for everybody else. And the truth is, Karen, you're all, whatever party you're from, scared stiff of him. Why?
We want to focus on what's going on in the country. We want to.
Yeah, but he sets the agenda. He said you can try and talk me down all day on this. You're going to give me an answer on this or not? He will dictate the agenda. You know it. Everybody around you knows it, and everybody in every other party knows it. Is he ruling our country?
No, Prime Minister's running the country.
The discussion surrounding grooming gangs in the UK has reached a pivotal moment. Following a recent parliamentary vote in which over 75% of the adult population called for a national investigation into this shocking scandal, Labour MPs opposed this crucial initiative. This decision ignited a wave of outrage, with many accusing the Labour Party of shielding those complicit in covering up these horrific crimes. Critics are vocal in their accusations, asserting that Labour MPs harbour their own dark secrets, and that the absence of a comprehensive public inquiry is a calculated effort to protect local councils and other institutions potentially involved in these egregious abuses. The public's reaction has been one of fury. People are rallying in support of the victims, expressing their dissatisfaction with the Labour Party's inaction. It is particularly infuriating that prominent politicians like Jess Phillips have failed to meet with the victims of these gangs, despite their influential positions. Frustration and anger are escalating as victims have been pleading for justice for years, only to be ignored by authorities as if their suffering is inconsequential. This has led to increasing demands for an independent investigation, with many believing that if the government refuses to act, individuals and organizations should step in to take on this critical responsibility. The situation urgently calls for clarity. Were the outcomes of the vote reflective of public sentiment, or was the investigation merely a facade for the private sector while the problem continues to escalate?
Into Jimmy Savile, but I thought at that time that there simply wasn't the evidence, the testimony simply wasn't compelling. Also, Savile did have a great standing with people, and so the threshold for any action taken was always going to be higher, and some of the claims felt slightly frivolous. We felt the threshold wasn't met at that time.
As Rosie Duffield astutely noted, supporting Labour feels akin to remaining in a toxic relationship where one tolerates the blatant corruption and damage inflicted by Starmer and his government. Despite widespread dissatisfaction over Keir Starmer and his wife receiving substantial donations from shadowy backers and powerful bankers, his supporters are doing everything they can to keep the party afloat. However, their efforts to salvage the party's reputation are being severely tested, especially in light of Elon Musk's increasing influence. Starmer's recent attempts to curb Musk's involvement in UK affairs appear increasingly desperate, particularly as local councillors and the public begin to lose confidence in his leadership. The situation is further complicated by alarming accusations. Claims that Starmer is defending groups implicated in serious crimes only intensify public outrage and raise serious questions about the future stability of the Labour Party.
Last night, time and time again, Rishi Sunak was clobbering you over the head with that £2,000 tax line. It took you almost half an hour to call it garbage. What on earth took you so long?
What matters is the facts. None of our plans involve tax rises for working people, and I'll spell it out. No income tax rises, no national insurance, no VAT. But what emerged from last night, and this is a very important takeaway, is that the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, with his back against the wall, desperately trying to defend their record in office, resorted to lies and he knows he was lying. And I don't say that lightly. Lying about our plans, lying about waiting lists, and lying about votes. And therefore the choice at the election is even clearer now, which is to turn our back, turn a page on the lies, the division and the chaos of the last 14 years and rebuild the country with Labour.
Public sentiment is clear. A significant majority in the UK is demanding a national investigation into these crimes. Frustration is mounting, and people are questioning why such an inquiry has not yet been initiated. On the 3rd of January 2025, Sarah Champion, the Labour MP for Rotherham, made a bold move by calling for a national investigation into the grooming gang scandal, further fracturing her party. This statement marked a dramatic shift, especially given that Champion faced severe backlash in 2017 for her comments regarding the exploitation of young girls by British Pakistani men. She emphasized the necessity of a thorough national investigation, arguing that local inquiries are inadequate and lack the power to compel witnesses. This declaration became a pivotal moment, underscoring the rising internal tensions within the Labour Party. Several MPs, including Champion, have begun to advocate for a comprehensive investigation, despite the party's hesitance. Critics allege that there is a systematic effort to conceal information, with many local authorities and police accused of neglecting or mishandling cases of gang-related crime. What are your thoughts on this video? Share your opinions in the comments and see you next time.